blood, misconducts, and a whole bunch of controversy as the Edmonton Oilers tie up the series in Game 4. But who will and will not be in the lineup heading into Vegas for Game 5? We will talk about that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, it was carnage and controversy in Game 4, and we now have the punishments for Alex Pietrangelo and Darnell Nurse and Jay Woodcroft. We will talk about that in just a second, but also on today's episode, how did the Edmonton Oilers absolutely dismantle the Vegas Golden Knights, and can they repeat it in Game 5? We will talk about how the Edmonton Oilers can continue their role and potentially head to the Western Conference Finals. That'll be coming up a little later on. And to wrap up today's episode, as always, after every Edmonton Oilers game, we wrap up with the good, the bad, and the ugly from Game 4 between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. All that much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, let's start off with the news that everybody was waiting to drop, and that was the suspension for Alex Pietrangelo and for Darnell Nurse. Both Darnell Nurse and Alex Pietrangelo will face a one-game suspension heading into Game 5 between the Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Jay Woodcroft also catching some side fade, as well as he will get a $10,000 fine, as coaches also get suspended or punished, I should say, because of this rule that is in place from the 1900s, essentially, back in the days of hockey, where if you were down by 4, you would just start going after the players, the best players on the other team. Kind of like how Alex Pietrangelo did. So I'm curious as to why it's Jay Woodcroft only getting the fine, where if their assistant captain, a guy who has won a Stanley Cup before, been there before, who is an absolute leader, is not also getting his head coach a fine as well. A lot to unpack here. I mean, it starts with the cross-check, of course, from Evander Kane. And I'll be honest with you, for a long time after that play, I sat there and went, no, you know what, that's... But those types of plays not get missed all the time, but sometimes cross-checks like that or this or that or the other thing are left alone, as they should be, because it's the playoffs. So at the time, I was like, okay, it's a little dirty, but we'll move on. It is what it is. Saw a couple of replays, and I was like, yeah, no, that's still kind of nasty, but whatever. I mean, it's happened before in games. We move. I've never seen genuinely a fan base like the Vegas Golden Knights that have hung on to something like this so heavily and for so long, but we move. Tell me why, when I rewatch again and again and again, and then I finally figure out that, and forget, because this seems to be something that a lot of hockey fans have forgotten, that if a player does turn into a hit, it doesn't matter if it's along the boards, if it's in open ice, if it's 3 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet. It doesn't matter how far away from the boards you are. If you turn into a hit like Alex Pietrangelo did, and Evander Kane finished his check, Now, Evander Kane did finish and follow through with his stick, but Evander Kane has always hit with both hands on his stick. And yes, we can go back to game 3, and Alex Pietrangelo would know that as well. But this is nothing new. This is something that Evander Kane has done for a while. This is, and by the letter of the law, Vegas Golden Knights fans and a lot of hockey fans want to go by the letter of the law. Oh, it's the letter of the law that he gets suspended because that's what it is. Well, then, by the letter of the law, your player, Alex Pietrangelo, turned into the hit from Evander Kane, and that is why he went face first, shoulder first, and basically got scorpioned into the boards, was because of that. So, the Evander Kane play, easy enough. But let's go back to this suspension for the instigator for Darnell Nurse. For some reason, Sportsnet Stats wanted to light the fire or the flame just before the Alex Pietrangelo news dropped, and well after the Darnell Nurse news dropped, as there have been, this is not the first, by the way, instigating penalty that was called throughout the regular season in the final 2 minutes or final 5 minutes of the third period in this season. During the regular season, there were 2 instigator penalties in the final 5 minutes of the third period. Of those 2 instigator penalties in the final 5 minutes of the third period this season, do you know how many resulted in a suspension? 0. None. Nada. Zilch. Well, here we go. This is the exact same, almost the exact same argument that we had in the first game of the first round of the playoffs. And note the key word in that is the playoffs. This is the playoffs, baby. So if you aren't even suspending or punishing the players that let it happen in an 82-game season, 82 games. If somebody loses a game in an 82-game season because of an instigating penalty that should be, by the letter of the law, enforced, but they're not suspended, then what makes it different in the playoffs? Not to mention that you are basically saying that Darnell Nurse, who fought a willing combatant, fought a guy that not only willingly fought him, dropped the gloves at the exact same time he did, threw the first 8 punches of the fight, but his damn captain stood there after the game in front of the media and said, hey, he asked him to go on the face-off. The whole game, they were showing footage between the benches of Nick Hague going after Evander Kane and Darnell Nurse going, why don't you fight me? Fight me. Why don't you fight me? Footage in the second flipping period. And you're telling me Darnell Nurse instigated that fight? You're telling me that that's on the exact same level as literal abuse, assault? That is an assault with a deadly weapon, with what Alex Pietrangelo did. And it's hockey, it's sport, it's allowed in certain contexts. But in the letter of the actual law, that is assault. So you're telling me that is on the exact same plane as 2 guys who willingly fought? I know George Peros went to an Ivy League school, but please, spare me the change. As I have said, this is the playoffs, and if you are going to suspend Darnell Nurse a game, then you damn well better suspend Alex Pietrangelo for longer than that. We talk about the multipliers in the playoffs when it comes to suspensions. If you get suspended a game, it's really equal to 2 games in the regular season. 2 games to 4 games, 3 games to 6 games, so on and so forth. And that's fair enough. that makes sense because there are only so many games you can play in the playoffs. But there's 82 games, a number that I can barely count to in the regular season. And in the exact same situation, in the 82 game season, you have set the precedent that was not a suspension. So what changed in the last month? Unfortunately, I do think that with this 1 game suspension on each side, that this game 6 specifically is going to be ugly. Pietrangelo will be back. Nurse will be back. Not potential elimination game. It will be an elimination game because whoever wins game 5 will have 3 wins on the series. In a potential, what will be in an elimination game in game 6, if that team who is facing elimination gets blown out, you don't think somebody's going to take some retribution? You don't think somebody might drive somebody literally through behind and through the boards? You don't think a guy like Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or Mark Stone or William Karlsson or Jack Eichel could get injured for the next series and not have them in the next series? So when the entire hockey world is watching the Western Conference Finals and potentially the Stanley Cup Finals, one of those teams might not have their stars because you failed. You failed as a league to protect the stars. And that's a damn shame. Alrighty, let's cool off. Let's move on to the game at hand from last night as well in game 4. Not just the dirty stuff, but the Edmonton Oilers absolutely looked like the Edmonton Oilers we all expect. But how can they transition that Edmonton Oilers into game 5? Well, we will talk about that in just a second, but first, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. So last night before game 4, I was texting a couple of buddies going, all right, boys, what's the plan for game 4? Where are we going? And then I got a text back going, haha, sorry, buddy, we just got tickets from Gametime using the Locked On code. Yeah, that's right. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Already last night, the Edmonton Oilers even up the series at 2 as the Oilers beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. And we've had a little bit of a rhythm or a pattern in this series, and it's an interesting pattern. As Elliot Friedman has put it, neither team has both been active or on present on the ice or on their A game at the same time on the ice. Game 1, it was the Vegas Golden Knights taking it. Game 2, it was all Oilers all the time. Game 3, it was all Knights all the time. And Game 4, it was all Oilers all the time. And only one game has been decided from within 2 goals, and that being Game 1. The Edmonton Oilers come into game 4, and a lot of people kind of concerned. Are they going to show up after a really, really poor showing, and after a penalty, a tough penalty but it is a penalty. I'm not going to say it's not a penalty. A tough penalty by Ryan McLeod put the Vegas Golden Knights on the power play early. And that was about it for the Vegas Golden Knights. 6 minutes and 46 seconds, into the first period. After killing that penalty from Ryan McLeod, the Edmonton Oilers would score first as Nick Bjugstad getting his third goal of the playoffs. Then Evan Bouchard with an absolute boosh bomb as he continues to run away with it. And of course, his defensive partner would put a bow on the first period with a goal for himself. It was his second shot on the shift, second shot immediately after, as Leon Draisaitl found him immediately. And you see kind of a pattern here. Nick Bjugstad, Evan Bouchard, Matthias Ekholm, and then the fourth scorer for the Edmonton Oilers, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Did you notice the pattern there? Not once did I mention a goal scored by Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Now, did McDavid and Draisaitl get a couple of points? Yeah, 2 assists each. One assist for Leon Draisaitl, 2 assists for Connor McDavid. But the Edmonton Oilers are getting contributions from all over their lineup. And when they win, and win big without McDavid or Draisaitl, to me, that bodes well for the Oilers and shows a potential flaw for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, with that being said, are we bouncing back and forth between these two teams, a win, a loss, a win, a loss? Yes, absolutely. The Edmonton Oilers, just like last series, after losing game 1, come back, win game 2, lose game 3. They're looking like they may go down 3-1, and they come back and win game 4. And now the series is in the Oilers' hands. At least it feels like. There's a lot of uproar on the Vegas Golden Knights side about how the Oilers have been dealing with guys like Mark Stone and Alex Pietrangelo, and you can go on and go so forth. But the Edmonton Oilers are playing the game that they want. And when they play the game that they want, well, they win big. But what is this game that they want to play? Well, how about the fact that the Edmonton Oilers once again severely out-hit the Vegas Golden Knights 46-36. They allowed the Vegas Golden Knights to get into and play their game, allowing the Vegas Golden Knights to take 64 penalty minutes, not penalties, my goodness, imagine. 64 penalty minutes for the Vegas Golden Knights. The Edmonton Oilers went on 7 power plays. Now, they only scored on 1 of them, but it's a game that was almost relatively out of hand before it wasn't. The Oilers outshot the Vegas Golden Knights 33-26, and 15 shot blocks for the Edmonton Oilers to the 9 of the Dallas Stars. They're making it heavy and hard for the Golden Knights to even skate with the puck, as they would get hit or hammered every single time they have it. They're making it difficult for the Vegas Golden Knights to even get shots towards Stuart Skinner, and when they do, there's Stuart Skinner right there ready to clean up the mess. They're allowing the Vegas Golden Knights to play into their hands and take stupid penalties, just like they did, well, just like the Edmonton Oilers did in the Los Angeles Kings series, where in Game 2, it seemed like the game was kind of out of the Oilers' hands, or Game 3, where you see the high stick and Leon Draisaitl getting the unsportsmanlike for the slash, just a whole lot of things that didn't make sense when the Oilers were sitting there and going, this game, we aren't playing our game, and the Los Angeles Kings are able to run around and play their game. Then the Oilers figured it out, were able to play their game, allowed the LA Kings to play into their hands, and the Oilers would go on to win 3 straight to move on to the second round. This round is kind of playing out the same. And heading into Game 5, if the Vegas Golden Knight fans are going to be livid. They are going to be horrendous on Friday night. And just like we said in Game 5, Game 6 it would have been, for the Edmonton Oilers, heading into the Crypto.com arena, the Edmonton Oilers need to, embrace. The Edmonton Oilers need to embrace this heel turn. The fact that it seems like anybody not on the Edmonton Oilers bandwagon absolutely despises the Edmonton Oilers. I put on my Twitter today, I said, are the Edmonton Oilers the new bad boys of the NHL? Everybody talks about, Evander Kane, so dirty. He's the new Brad Marchand. Vinny Desharnais keeps hitting the goal. They're going after Mark Stone's back. Yeah, duh. What do you mean? Of course they're going after Mark Stone's back. After Mark Stone spent the entire season basically on LTIR. Is he going to make it? Played a couple games. He's back on LTIR. And then that video of him stiffening up and walking to the dressing room before the series even started. I don't know why he's playing. I don't. I do get it. He's the captain. It's the playoffs. It's because it's the cup. I get it. But this guy has had 2 major back surgeries, and the Edmonton Oilers are going for nothing but the back, as they should. And I'm not just talking about, cross-checks to the back, as if you've never seen a hockey game before and people don't go after each other in front of the net by their pant line. Like, grow up. But it's also the big hits that they throw, because as soon as you're landing on your back, if you get hit from in front of you, if you get cross-checked from behind, like what Vinny Desharnais did to Mark Stone in Game 1, I believe that was, that's going to hurt too. I could not possibly imagine the pain and the lack of mobility that Mark Stone has right now. Why he's playing, I don't know. But the Edmonton Oilers do need to go after that. If the Edmonton Oilers had made it known that a certain player was injured, like Zach Hyman, if the Edmonton Oilers let the league or the Vegas Golden Knights know that Zach Hyman's knee is not 100% healthy right now, then they're probably going to go after their knee. And fair enough. It's the playoffs. They should. So enough of this crying, they're going after his back. Shut up. That's how playoffs work. And if you're not willing to see Nick Hague's blood after he talks all that smack and says, fight me, and then he bleeds from the mouth that he talks so much crap from, then playoff hockey isn't for you. But if it is for you, you are having an absolute blast, because this series is the best series we have going in the playoffs right now. And Game 5 goes tomorrow night in Vegas, 8 o'clock puck drop here on Mountain Time here in Edmonton. But the game, of course, is at T-Mobile Arena. We shall see if the Edmonton Oilers can mirror the first round against the Los Angeles Kings and bounce back with 3 straight wins, or will the Vegas Golden Knights put the Oilers on the brink of elimination at home in Game 6? Well, we'll find out in Game 3 tomorrow night. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode with the good, the bad, and the ugly from last night's game between the Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights in Game 4. We will talk about that in just a second. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode with the good, the bad, and the ugly from Game 4 between the Edmonton Oilers. And we're going to start off with the good. The good being the fact that the Edmonton Oilers scored 4 goals without Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl scoring any one of them. Now, we did just talk about this, so I won't elaborate too much, but when the Edmonton Oilers are able to win games without Connor or Leon scoring a goal, the Edmonton Oilers kind of break through that mold of, oh, their power play merges, oh, they're only one player, blah, blah, blah. But it shows the depth that this Edmonton Oilers team truly has. We have been talking about it basically all year, well, especially the latter half of the year, but the Edmonton Oilers' bottom 6 has been contributing all year. The amount of Edmonton Oilers that have over 10 goals is very impressive, and it's not just guys like Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or Evan Bouchard or this, that, or the other thing. It's players from up and down the lineup. Here are the total amount of players from the regular season who scored 10 or more goals this season. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, Warren Fogle, Derek Ryan, Darnell Nurse, Ryan McLeod, Clem Costin, Matthias Janmark, Kyler Yamamoto, and Nick Bjugstad. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 players for the Edmonton Oilers, including a defenseman who scored more than 10 goals this year. So 12 forwards. So you know, if you've been watching hockey a little bit, you know that in a hockey game, you run with 4 lines normally that of 3 players, which means you have 12 forwards. All 12 forwards for the Edmonton Oilers, in theory, have scored 10 or more goals this year. And you're seeing why that's important in the playoffs. So the good is depth scoring, really. The bad for the Oilers is consistency. Where is this every single game? Now, you know, you can't put this out every single game, but the 2 games that the Edmonton Oilers have won so far in this series have been blowouts. They only allow 1 goal in the game, a late garbage time goal, really, as the Edmonton Oilers in Game 2 won 5-1 and was at 5-0 at one point. In Game 4, won 4-1 and was at one point 4-0. Where is this effort all the time? Because if you show out this effort, even 75% of this effort in Game 5, you'll win easily. But in Game 3 and Game 1, the Edmonton Oilers failed to show up, which kind of gives me a concern because look at those days or games that they are playing. Game 1, the first day after travel. Game 3, the first game after travel. Game 6, you travel. Game 5, you travel. Game 7, you travel. That's what concerns me. So, for the Edmonton Oilers, the bad being consistency. And the ugly, that's how it goes. The good, the bad, and the ugly from Game 4 for me is not anything really specifically from Game 4, but it's the Department of Player Safety. I know I've talked a lot about this already, but the Department of Player Safety needs an absolute upheaval. It cannot be run by one guy. It just straight up cannot be, especially run by a guy who, yes, like I said, had an Ivy League or went to an Ivy League school, has an Ivy League degree. He's a smart man. But even if you watch the Department of Player Safety video on Alex Pietrangelo's Slash, all he sits there and says is, this is a slash. He's played 900 games in the NHL and has never been suspended before. He's being suspended for a game. You gave zero input on the actual reason why he wasn't suspended longer, especially considering that you're now saying and putting a precedent around that being the same infraction or same severity as an instigating penalty? Earlier this year, Gary Bettman sat there in front of media, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't exactly remember when it was, but I believe it was for the All-Star game. He stood up there in front of media for a little addressing of the nation, and he said, I think, or when asked about the safety of stars in the league, he stood there and said, I think the NHL is doing well in protecting its stars. Let me ask you, do you think the NHL protected their stars last night? Do you think the decision with Alex Pietrangelo is a decision that they put into place with the intention of protecting their stars? I'll answer it for you. No. This whole thing has given the NHL an opportunity to prove to all of us, NHL fans, that they are truly committed to protecting their stars, and they failed. They not only failed you, but they failed their stars, they failed their players, all of their players. Because if you're not going to protect the stars like Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or Jack Eichel, or you can even go back to when Jordan Eberle broke Andrew Cogliano's neck, literally. How can you expect them to protect guys like Andrew Cogliano, Jordy Martinook? The list goes on. Zach Whitecloud. It's how can you sit there and see what the NHL just did and go, yeah, they care about my safety? They don't. They care about keeping money in their pocket, and they care about keeping their reputation somehow in check. Because if you can only suspend a player for one game, oh, look, we only suspend, it's okay, it's all right. Look, we're a safe league. We barely have any suspensions. It's a damn shame. The ugly from Game 4 is the Department of Player Safety. Alrighty, let's wrap it up there, folks. Excuse the absence. That's the word I'm looking for. The move has been crazy and some personal stuff going on right now. So we shall see what is going on in the future. But either way, the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights go at it in Game 5 tomorrow night, Friday night. An 8 o'clock puck drop Mountain Time at T-Mobile Arena as each team looks to put the other against the brink of elimination. As the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights, tied at 2 games apiece, look to win the third and potentially put a chokehold on the series. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Oilers today, and hopefully at the end of this episode, we can all play La Bamba, baby.